Insiders are revealing exactly why Tom Cruise feels like karma has been served.
For years, many believed Tom Cruise's silence following his breakup with Nicole Kidman was simply a reaction of shock. But new revelations indicate it was a carefully calculated decision, strategic and intentionally distant. Within just 48 hours of their marriage ending, every statement and even every pause was deliberately orchestrated. So, why did Tom choose complete silence when the world was desperate for answers? And what message was he truly sending to Nicole through that quiet? This is the story of a silence that was anything but accidental.
What Tom Cruise is saying to friends about Nicole Kidman's divorce. This one's interesting because, look, as I recall, and I tried to get more into this, and we can go deeper if you want me to, tell me in the comments down below. As I recall, Tom Cruise filed for divorce from Nicole Kidman. It was Tom Cruise who left Nicole Kidman, if I remember correctly. I mean, that's what the stories were that were coming in. And it was also the whole Scientology of it all. Like, she wasn't a fan. It was clear that, he was and wanted the kids to be. The kids remained to be there along with him. And they don't seem to have much relationship with Nicole. Just like now, Tom doesn't have much relationship with Suri, who is not in Scientology as well. It's the religion, as I've learned and talked to people there, as you may know, watching this channel or others, like, you have to turn against your family if they don't follow you into the whole thing, and that's just weird. Many have come forward and admitted how they have to turn on loved ones just because they are leaving Scientology, and that to me is a huge red flag. Huge red flag.
When the headlines broke in early 2001, everyone thought they were witnessing the downfall of Hollywood's golden couple, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. 11 years together, 2 adopted children, blockbuster careers, gone overnight. Gossip magazines painted it as sudden heartbreak, a tragedy no one saw coming. But beneath that image of devastation was a story moving at lightning speed. Nicole allegedly filed for divorce within 48 hours of a tense private meeting, a move that even surprised her closest friends. It sounded impulsive, but insiders later hinted it was far from emotional. That short window may have been planned long before the papers hit the court. To the public, it looked like chaos. One day they were smiling on red carpets. The next, a statement was released, and reporters were scrambling. TV hosts replayed old clips of Tom calling Nicole the love of his life, and fans turned those moments into symbols of heartbreak. People wondered whether this was an eruption of emotion or something colder. That's where the story began to twist, because those close to them claimed Nicole knew exactly what she was doing when she made her move. At the time, Nicole was finishing film commitments while Tom was in Los Angeles focusing on his own projects, creating the perfect storm of distance and opportunity. When Nicole's legal team acted, Tom was hundreds of miles away. The press learned almost instantly, and by the time his team responded, the headlines had already written the first chapter. Nicole leaves, Tom blindsided. But insiders say that word, blindsided, might not tell the full story. Some described him as furious and shocked, while others said he saw it coming and chose not to interfere. The two narratives clashed publicly, leaving fans uncertain who was really pulling the strings. Still, the timing was almost cinematic, just 48 hours, barely enough for lawyers to prepare a statement, let alone manage a global media storm. Yet Tom did exactly that without uttering a single word. His calm but unreadable expression became the defining image on magazine covers. And strangely, that stillness gave him power. When everyone expected an emotional response or public explanation, he retreated. No interviews, no quotes, no defenses, nothing. His silence confused the media, but also prevented the story from spiraling out of control. Each unanswered question only fueled public fascination. Analysts would later say those 2 days weren't chaos at all. They were the opening move of a carefully controlled game. And if the timing was strategic, the silence that followed was even more deliberate. At first, Tom Cruise's complete quiet seemed like heartbreak. No interviews, no red carpet remarks, no offhand comments. For a man known for his constant media presence, that sudden disappearance felt eerie. He had built his career on being visible, charming, always ready with a smile. Then suddenly nothing. Cameras waited, microphones hovered, but he said nothing about Nicole, the marriage, or what went wrong. It was as if the most familiar voice in Hollywood had been switched off. The public didn't know what to make of it. People expected Tom to speak first, to reclaim control as he always had. Instead, he vanished. The silence had a strange effect. The less he spoke, the more people talked. His quiet became its own headline, a symbol of mystery and restraint. Reporters speculated endlessly. Was he heartbroken, furious, or quietly planning his next move? Nobody knew, and that uncertainty kept the story alive. Behind the scenes, his PR team reportedly scrambled to keep messaging consistent while tabloids filled the vacuum with rumors. Fans tried to read meaning into every photo, every wave, every polite no comment. But it wasn't chaos. It was control. What looked like emotional paralysis was actually a calculated pause. Tom's team understood one of Hollywood's golden rules. When scandal strikes, silence can make someone appear composed instead of guilty. The same tactic had worked for other major stars. Disappear just long enough for the noise to burn itself out. By staying silent, Tom allowed sympathy to build around him. He didn't need to defend himself because every unspoken word made him seem more dignified. Over time, the lack of gossip became his armor. Insiders revealed that Tom was careful never to badmouth Nicole or share private details. That restraint wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Years later, sources said he felt justified in staying silent, believing it spoke louder than any public statement. The decision not to lash out gave him control over tone and timing. Every word he withheld kept his image clean, collected, and above the drama. What appeared to be heartbreak was actually a masterclass in reputation management. His silence wasn't confusion, it was choreography. But such discipline rarely comes from one man alone. Someone, or something, was guiding that silence. And that's where the story starts to darken. The story starts to darken.
Insiders are revealing exactly why Tom Cruise feels like karma has been served. I got thoughts on it. Let's see what's said. So with their loved up social media posts, red carpet PDAs, and some seriously intimate song lyrics after their white-hot life, news that Nicole filed for Keith came as a huge bombshell. Agreed. They share daughters, yada yada. Last week's speculation was mounting over Keith's friendship with Maggie, as we just talked about, leaving her hurt and betrayed. It's devastating to Nicole. It had been emerged that Keith had been quietly setting up his own place outside the home. Amidst the storm of the current marriage, Nicole's 2001 divorce from her first husband, Tom Cruise, has also been hitting headlines once again, as experts suggest that the baby girl actress is likely reliving the very public split. It's believed that the pair, who share Bella and Connor, haven't spoken over 2 decades. But now a source tells us that after being publicly demonized following their split after 11 years of marriage, Tom now feels like karma has finally caught up with Nicole.
For years, whispers surrounded Tom Cruise's split from Nicole Kidman, and nearly all of them pointed in the same direction: Scientology. Former insiders claim the church didn't just observe the divorce. They quietly steered key decisions behind the scenes. One ex-Scientologist even alleged that leaders within the organization wanted the marriage to end because Nicole refused to fully embrace the faith. That claim was never proven, but it aligned with long-standing reports about how deeply the church involves itself in the private lives of its most prominent members, especially when loyalty becomes uncertain. Scientology is known for exerting strict control over how members communicate with the outside world. Every statement, interview, and subtle gesture is expected to reflect the church's image and authority. So, when Tom went silent after the breakup, those familiar with its methods weren't surprised. The official narrative denied any interference, labeling the split as a private issue. Yet insiders described a different reality, an institutional hold that determined when, how, and even if Tom could speak. This tension between the public denial and the alleged internal influence became one of the most disputed aspects of the entire story. Reports from that time suggest Tom met with church officials and PR advisors soon after Nicole filed for divorce. The goal, according to sources, was simple: damage control. The guidance he received was even simpler: say nothing. That order fit perfectly with the church's long-standing reputation for avoiding unnecessary media attention. Silence, they believed, would protect both Tom's reputation and the church's image. His quiet wasn't driven by heartbreak. It was dictated by hierarchy. Once that directive was given, his demeanor followed it precisely: calm, measured, and completely in sync with the organization's expectations. This same pattern has reappeared in other high-profile separations linked to Scientology. Limit emotion, restrict communication, avoid public conflict. The playbook rarely changes, and it consistently demonstrates how calculated the system can be in managing its members' public narratives. In Tom's situation, the church's reach went beyond press management. Scientology places immense value on authority and obedience, and those principles shaped how the divorce unfolded. Nicole's lack of involvement in the faith reportedly made her an outsider, even during their marriage. After the split, that distance became even clearer, especially regarding her relationship with their children. Sources close to the family said Nicole's independence made the church uneasy, her refusal to conform setting her apart in ways they couldn't control. So when people assumed Tom's silence was an act of personal restraint, they're only seeing one layer of the story. That silence served a much larger framework, one built on image control, loyalty enforcement, and institutional power. It wasn't just a man retreating from the spotlight, it was a system preserving its influence in plain view. And eventually, even that carefully maintained quiet began to fracture, but only just enough to reveal the cracks beneath.
Insider says Tom took so much grief from Nicole and her Hollywood cronies when they first divorced, he'll never forget or forgive how villainized he was, and in some ways, that far-reaching perception haunts him to this day. He's following the divorce news closely, and part of him feels badly for her since he knows how much she's hurting, but at the same time, he's also allowing himself a little pat on the back, telling people close to him that this is karma doing its thing to a large degree. The reason behind Tom and Nicole's split had never been made clear, with one former Scientologist alleging it was the controversial church in which Tom, as a devout follower, had been pushing for the couple to split after Nicole refused to become a member. However, what quickly became apparent is that for Tom, silence is golden, while Nicole was happy to share her heartbreak with the world. She was cagey. She did not give us as much as we wanted, let's be honest. She quipped to a USA Chat host Letterman that she could now wear heels following her split from Nicole. I mean, that's funny. That was a funny line. It was. Nicole did later open up about the devastation over a breakup 6 years into her marriage to Keith. This line is especially funny if Tom left her. Can wear heels now because Nicole's very tall and Tom Cruise is not as tall as he seems in the movies. I thought our life together was perfect, Nicole said at the time. It took me a very long time to heal. It was a shock to my system. We became very dependent on one another. I was reeling with Tom. I would have gone to the ends of the earth for him. I was totally smitten. I fell madly, passionately in love. So that was what Nicole had said about Tom. It's very similar, it sounds like, to what happened with Keith. So unless there's something else more nefarious that Nicole's done in both instances, which the men are just not revealing, how is this karma? That's kind of mean. You left her and now you're happy someone else left her? If that's true, Tom, man, that's lame.
Years later, when Tom Cruise finally began giving interviews again, nothing he said resembled a confession. Yet buried within those polished media appearances were words that, in hindsight, sound strikingly personal. During various movie promotions, he often spoke about control, truth, and choice, all while insisting he was only referring to his work. At the time, no one thought much of it. It was just Tom being disciplined and professional. But looking back, those phrases mirror the very dynamics that surrounded his divorce. Fans later picked up on subtle patterns suggesting he wasn't just discussing films, but quietly alluding to what had unfolded behind the scenes. Cruise had perfected the art of redirection. When reporters cautiously approached questions about his private life, he'd smile and pivot toward topics like discipline, focus, or work ethic. That instinct became his armor. Every inquiry about love or relationships transformed into a discussion about his devotion to the craft. It was flawless, almost mechanical, as if rehearsed countless times. What once seemed like media training might have been something more, an intentional code woven into his interviews. His remarks about maintaining control echoed the same restraint that defined his silence during the divorce. In one promotional junket, he spoke passionately about truth in storytelling, explaining that understanding truth means taking responsibility for your choices. It sounded like an actor reflecting on his process, until you realize those words could easily describe his personal reality. Lines about owning one's truth, staying composed under pressure, and distinguishing what's real felt like glimpses into thoughts he'd never voiced directly. Each answer seemed perfectly designed to satisfy the interviewer while still hinting at something unresolved beneath the surface. His tone during these moments carried a precision and intensity missing from typical Hollywood chatter. He wasn't casual, he was calculated. Analysts who later revisited those interviews noticed how his phrasing mirrored the same deliberate calm he'd displayed during the height of the scandal. Even when questions turned playful, he somehow circled back to themes of control and purpose, repeating the cycle again and again. It was as if he could only frame his life through the lens of mastery and restraint, both on screen and off. Then, in later years, a few rare moments broke the pattern. He'd offer brief, carefully phrased remarks about relationships, never naming names, but sounding slightly human, even wistful. Those flashes of vulnerability vanished as quickly as they appeared, buried beneath new projects and press tours. Whether these moments were genuine slips of honesty or subtle, calculated breadcrumbs is impossible to say. But one thing remains clear: Tom never truly broke his silence. He simply transformed it. He learned to speak through a coded language of professionalism and philosophy, embedding his real feelings between the lines. And through that mastery of message, through his ability to control even what was left unsaid, he left Nicole carrying the emotional weight of their story alone.
The insider says Tom didn't have a high opinion about Keith, so it annoyed him when this guy was painted as a saintly figure who'd swooped in on a white horse, so to speak, and rescued Nicole from the hellish memory of their marriage. Tom was careful never to disparage her publicly or kiss and tell in any way, yet as soon as she got her chance to use their breakup for attention, she went on TV and mocked his height. Oh, come on, get over it. Which is, she knows very well, is a sore point for him. To make matters more humiliating for Tom, Nicole also described their marriage as mundane, while she praised her romance with Keith as incredibly raw, incredibly dangerous. Now the source says Tom feels vindicated, that Nicole's words are coming back to haunt her. That's spiteful, dude. I hope this isn't true. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like Tom because of Scientology, but I like Tom in his movies. I do. As a person, I don't know the man. As a movie star, he does deliver. He's got some fantastic films. If this is true, this would really make me look at him differently. It's only natural Tom would feel a sense of vindication now that she's having to eat her words. The whole world is finally seeing what Tom says he's known all along, that the perfect marriage narrative Nicole was always pushing was more of a dream than reality. Tom says he has always believed Keith was a rebound who fit the image Nicole wanted to project, and now that Nicole and Keith are divorcing and all the messy details are getting out, it's pretty clear Tom was right.
The months passed after the split. It became clear that silence had become Tom Cruise's most powerful weapon. Nicole Kidman stepped into the spotlight, giving interviews, showing emotion, and trying to move forward. On the surface, she appeared composed, but those close to her said she carried a deep, quiet pain beneath that calm. Friends described her as strong for her daughter's sake, but warned that the emotional dam would eventually break. That hidden struggle fueled a public narrative of heartbreak and recovery. Meanwhile, Tom appeared completely unshaken. His expressions remained neutral, his tone steady, and he avoided any personal questions altogether. The contrast was impossible to miss. One person displaying vulnerability, the other radiating control. Tom's silence did more than protect him. It created a shield. With no public comments to analyze, reporters had nothing to dissect. While Nicole's honesty turned into quotes, headlines, and endless commentary, Tom's absence from the emotional conversation gave him an aura of strength and precision. People often forget that silence is also a statement, and his refusal to engage said plenty. By staying quiet, he avoided scrutiny and allowed Nicole's openness to consume all the emotional attention. Her honesty seemed courageous, but came with risk. His silence appeared disciplined and powerful. That imbalance defined the media coverage that followed. Nicole's pain became its own story. She was portrayed as fragile, human, and deeply affected, while Tom embodied control and professionalism. His silence projected composure, keeping his image spotless, while hers invited endless analysis. To the public, she was the one processing heartbreak, and he was the man moving forward with focus and purpose. But that wasn't just perception, it shaped real consequences. Tom's career continued to soar, stacking hit after hit with his reputation intact. Nicole, despite her acclaimed performances, faced constant scrutiny about her personal life and emotional recovery. Media experts later observed that reputation recovery after a high-profile breakup depends entirely on who controls the narrative. Tom did, Nicole didn't. Her openness invited speculation, while his total withdrawal stopped gossip in its tracks. One analyst noted that strategic silence can shift public sympathy, and that's exactly what happened. No one could twist Tom's words because he never gave any. With time, his restraint came to look less like avoidance and more like wisdom. Every pause, every no comment strengthened his image. What once appeared humble now reads as calculated power. Today, many view Tom's silence not as emotional retreat, but as a masterclass in control, transforming absence into dominance. His composure became camouflage, his quiet redefined as authority. What once looked like dignity was in fact strategic mastery, a perfectly executed act of image control. And even long after the camera stopped rolling, that imbalance still resonates. Two reputations shaped by one defining difference. Nicole's legacy of vulnerability stands beside Tom's carefully guarded silence, because Tom Cruise's quiet after his divorce from Nicole Kidman wasn't heartbreak. It was design. Every skipped interview, every avoided camera was intentional. His silence became his statement. While others saw emptiness, he was rewriting perception, proving that sometimes silence doesn't hide the truth. It owns it. By refusing to speak, he froze the story before it could turn against him. Analysts later called it one of Hollywood's most brilliant exercises in image management, a lesson in how silence, when timed and controlled, can speak louder than any confession ever could.